right, so fourth period. We're recording here in fifth period for you. So we're on number 11. And so these two just say to solve for y. So there's going to be a couple like this on your cumulative test and your semester test. So when we solve for y, that means we want y by itself. And the purpose of solving for y, guys, is because there is a great, wonderful y equals button on the calculator. So whenever you have something like this, if you solve for y, you can put it in y equals, which makes life so much easier than if you're able to put it in the calculator. So just keep that in mind, that there's a reason why we solve for y. We solve for y because that, makes it easier to put it in the calculator. So if we're wanting to solve for y, that means we want the x, the 3x to move, right? It means we want the y to stay there and we want everything else to go to the other side. So if we want that 3x to move, that 3x is being added to 2y, so that means it is its own term, right? So it's a positive 3x, so how do we get it to move? How do we get a positive 3x to move, Kiana? Negative 3x, good. What we do to one side, we do to the other. Now, can I put that negative 3x directly under the 6? Are they the same kind of term? No. So I'm going to write it off to the side because that 6 is a constant and this negative 3x is an x. So they don't go together. They're separate things. These cross off. My 2y comes down. And then my 6 minus 3x goes together just like that.
Yeah.
Well, is the y all the way by itself? No, we have to divide by 2. So we're going to divide this side by 2, and we're going to divide this side by 2. Okay? The 2's cross off, and then we have y equals. Honestly, to get this one right, you could simply just write this straight down and bring it down exactly like it is. That is correct. But to put that in a calculator, you'd have to know that anything on the top, you'd have to put it in parentheses. So to make it so that it's more likely that you're going to get it right in the calculator, we're going to separate it into pieces. Okay? So 6 divided by 2 is 3. And negative 3 divided by 2, math inner is negative 1, or negative 3 halves x. You can switch them. This is right. I'd give it you that make it right on the semester test if it looks like this. But if it were a ABCD kind of situation, it would probably be switched. So this is a positive 3, and this is a negative 3 half x. And if you were trying to graph it, you'd want it switched. Y equals negative 3 halves x plus 3. Okay, this negative goes here, and that's positive.
This table sucks.
Yeah, sorry. It's only going to be here for another day or so. Then we're done with testing, and I'll move out of here. Okay, number 12. Looking at number 12, we are trying to solve for y. So what piece do we want to move? What do you think we should move? Justin.
Okay.
What should we move when we're trying to solve for y? The x, and that x, wait, is it positive or negative right now? So we're going to subtract x, okay? And we're not going to write it underneath here because it's not a constant, it's an x. So we're going to write it in its own column. X minus x is 0, so that crosses off. Negative y equals 1 minus x. And then what do we do next, Rachel? Is that y by itself? Divide by, what'd you say? What number is right here?
1.
Negative 1, good. Negative 1, we're dividing by negative 1. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 is 1. So y equals, and like I said, you could just write it like this. I'll accept it as right. It's just harder to put in the calculator, and so I want you to know how to break it up so that you can make sure you can get it right in the calculator. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. And then negative 1 divided by negative 1 is a positive 1x. And we can just say positive x. You can put a 1x there if you want. But 1x and x are the same thing. And you can, but you don't have to, turn these around. Okay? Do you have a question? Okay. So negative 1 and positive x, so you can turn that into y equals x minus 1. If it was multiple choice, like the semester test might be, it's going to look like this. It's not going to look like this or this. It's going to look like this, and you have to know that that's the same thing. Okay? You might have one that's like negative x plus 1 as a choice, and that would be wrong. You have to be able to know how to turn it around. Okay? All right. So that's the only two like that. So I'm going to stop the recording and